Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Victoria Online. It's lovely to have you here with us today. And if you happen to live in Victoria and want to stop by and visit us in person, we are in the Cook Street Activity Center at 380 Cook Street in Victoria. But if you are at home still, social isolating or living elsewhere and you're joining us today, it's really wonderful to have you with us in any capacity. The subject of my talk today is coming out of sorrow's kitchen. I happened to have been looking through some old files the other day, and I came across a line. I've been in sorrow's kitchen, and I've licked out all the pots. And I thought, wow, that's an amazing piece of writing. Didn't sound like anything that I had written. And so I Googled it. And it actually is the title of a novel written by a woman named Susan Straight. I haven't read the novel. I have no idea what it's about, but I guess the title was something that just intrigued me so much that I wrote it down one day and thought I would get back to it. And as I thought about that title, I thought it is so appropriate for this time. And then I thought, it's probably been appropriate for a long, long time. Because as I was thinking about this, I realized that there are many times that I begin a talk with, we live in challenging times. Heavy sigh, heavy heart, as I say those things. And for the last few years, I've just felt like every day was getting worse and worse with the kind of news that was being broadcast. And yesterday, when I heard about the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, my heart just about stopped. I felt such incredible pain. I thought, just when I thought things could not get worse, they have got worse. I mean, this amazing, amazing woman who has been so courageous and who has struggled so valiantly through the years and who has changed the course of history for women. I had no idea how amazing she was until I actually saw the film about her life, RBG. But it wasn't until the end of the film that I even realized how much she had done for women. And of course, I've heard so much more about that ever since. So I really recommend the movie if you haven't seen it. And there'll be much more about her during the days ahead as we go into a time of mourning for her. But when I heard the news, I didn't even have words. I just burst into tears. I was trying to pray, and between each line that I would try to pray, the tears would just keep flowing. There was something about that remarkable woman that just really, really captured my heart, captured my mind. And when you think about it, she was 87 years old. She's had several bouts with cancer. 11 years ago, she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and she was told that, that was the end of the road for her. Nobody survives pancreatic cancer. But there she was 11 years later, still going strong. And in the meantime, she had colon cancer, she had lung cancer, she had a stent put in her heart. And despite radiation and all of her treatment that she was having, she hardly missed a day of work. She loved her work so much, and she took it so seriously. She was barely 5 feet tall and barely 100 pounds. She's truly the living proof of the expression, she may be little, but she's mighty. She has been a mighty, mighty force for good. And now Americans, and not just Americans, but women throughout the world who have been touched by her life, are possibly feeling fearful and feeling a deep sorrow and wondering what is going to happen next, because the Supreme Court of the United States is at risk here. And so I kind of went back into Sorrow's kitchen, and I was lingering there and licking the pots clean. And I started to think about it, and then I heard this voice inside that said to me, "Get out of the kitchen. That's not where you belong." Would Ruth Ginsburg want you to be in the kitchen licking the pots and and crying and being in sorrow. No, she would say, go to the mountaintop. Go to the mountaintop with a harp in one hand and a sword in the other, and play the harp for peace and brandish the sword for justice. That's the kind of woman that she was. I pray that I can become worthy of even speaking about her. She's so extraordinary. And so there's a lot of sadness today. There are lots of people who are probably in sorrow's kitchen and wondering what to do and wondering what is going to happen next. And it's really, really important for us to consider where we are putting our energy. There's a woman, an author, a modern day mystic, and a minister who has written a book about the heart. And she talks about us carrying around energy packages and releasing them out to the world. And I thought, what an amazing way to express this. Energy packages, what is in the energy packages we're sending out? Are they filled with fear? Are they filled with poisonous thoughts? Are they filled with lack of the ability to forgive? Are they filled with judgment? Are they filled with hatred? Are they filled with discontent? Because if we're sending those packages out into the world, then we're really providing a lot of toxicity on this planet, a lot of toxicity to the earth and to the people of the earth. Think about it. There was a group of scientists who did a study where they brought together 8 monks who were with the Dalai Lama, and they wanted to test their brains. And so they put them through a series of ECGs and, had them all wired up to all kinds of electrodes. And what they discovered with these monks, 8 of them, who had been through thousands of hours of meditation, when they looked at the screens, they saw that the front lobes of their brain were filled with light. They were glowing with light. And then they took 8 regular people, for want of a better term, and ran the same tests. And there was no light there at all, nothing. And this fascinated me because I read a book many years ago called The Place Where God Lives. And a scientist had conducted tests that showed that people who were very spiritual had a highly developed right temporal lobe in their brains. And people who had been through deep spiritual experiences and transformations had that same thing in their brains, and other people did not. And so what the scientists decided was that people who meditate a lot, people who can focus singularly on silence or on one thought for a period of time, develop this light in their brain. And we know that in the teaching of science of mind, that what we teach, what we believe is that our thoughts create our reality. So think about it. If we're just regular people and we don't do any meditation, we don't do any prayer, we don't have a spiritual nature at all, then atoms don't even have a chance to start creating something. There's no time, because the average person who is without spiritual connection has 4 to 6 thoughts in a minute. None of those have time to really start manifesting into anything. The manifestation comes when we can stay with one thought for a period of time. Esther Hicks, who channels Abraham, said if we can hold a single thought for 13, was it 23 seconds, I think, something like, I'd have to look that up, so Google it. But just for a certain number of seconds, that we can start the manifestation process. But think how powerful it is if we can be in a state of meditation with thoughts about peace, with thoughts about love, with thoughts about forgiveness, with thoughts about connection to God, Spirit, whatever it is you want to call it. That creative intelligence that is in everyone and everything. Just think about what the possibilities are for creation when we can do that, and how important it is for us to be able to do that. So, what are the thoughts that we're wrapping up in little packages, or maybe big packages, and sending out there? Are we dancing with our demons? Are we sending out messages of hatred and anger and frustration and hostility? Because those are only going to provide more problems for us on this planet. Cynthia Bourgeau, in her book, said that we are poisoning our planet with toxicity. We are poisoning other people with our toxicity, with our toxic thoughts, with what it is that we are ruminating over day after day after day over, ain't it awful, how terrible everything is around us, rather than looking at things in a different way. That's an interesting thought. She said, think about what is happening on this planet right now. She said, climate crisis that we're in, COVID, the horrible things that are happening. She said, the toxicity that we are pouring forth with our thoughts can't help but create these challenges on the earth, these toxic things on the earth. And she speculated that if all of us went into a place of reverence for all life, a place of love, a place of compassion, a place of forgiveness, and if we did not allow ourselves out of that space, if we did not allow ourselves to go back into sorrow's kitchen, that COVID would have been eliminated in 6 months. That's an amazing thought, an amazing thing to consider. And I remember a number of years ago in Washington, D.C., there was an experiment one summer where 2,700 people were asked to sit in meditation for the entire summer to see whether or not the crime rate would be reduced. And the crime rate went down by an incredible amount that summer. And I often say, if that's the case, then why aren't we having the military sitting in circles and meditating on peace and love, rather than out training and, rather than equipping ourselves with more and more weapons of mass destruction, things that can threaten all of humanity? We really have to start looking at life in a different way. We have to get out of that kitchen, and we have to package our thoughts in a different way. So if we feel ourselves kind of slipping into that space that is so toxic, it's really important for us to go to the mountaintop, and to sit on the mountaintop and to meditate and to pray and to listen to the music of the harp, and to know that there is something higher and better, and that this God being, this God stuff, this God self is who we are. We were created with God inside each one of us, God in everyone and in everything. And we really need to remember that as we go through what I'm calling challenging times. Let us look at them as times of opportunity. Are we going to allow ourselves to grow? Or are we going to just wither up and die? The choice is really ours to make. We can look at life through rose-colored glasses, and it's a whole lot better than looking through dark ones. The thing is, we just need to make up our minds that we're going to look at things in a happier way. And as we do, and as we stay in that space, we feel our spirits lighten. Life changes dramatically for us, and it starts to change dramatically for everyone around us too. We have to make God a priority in our lives. So many have lost faith. People are abandoning their churches. They're abandoning religion. And I can understand that, because there are things that are pretty hard to believe that we might read about that was written thousands of years ago. The thing is that there is a new kind of faith. There is a new kind of religion. There is a new truth that is blossoming on this planet. And it has been in the works now for a few hundred years. And the thing is, the teaching is that God is in everyone and everything, not somewhere out there, not somewhere up in the sky, not somewhere in judgment about each one of us, but this love, this divine love. And it is in our hearts, and it is there for us to awaken. It is the Christ consciousness that is just saying, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up and know the truth, and know the power of our thoughts. You know, Lynn McTaggart wrote that there's enough energy between two people that we could boil the oceans of the earth. Imagine that. We could boil the oceans of the earth with our energy, two of us, except we don't have a clue how to do that. But the thing is, if we realize that that power is there, if we recognize that we have this power within, if we recognize that our thoughts are things, our thoughts are in the invisible, but they are coming into form when we have passion behind them. And so it's really important that we don't stay in Sorrow's kitchen licking the pots. It's really important that we don't stay in places of deep sorrow, in places of grief, in places of anger, in places of absolute disgust with what we're seeing. And instead we rise above on the mountaintop and we see love spreading out over all humanity. And we know in our hearts that things can be different. And we need to understand that we have to stop just living in our own little bubbles where all we care about is our own welfare and that of our families and our friends. That bubble has to encapsulate the earth. It has to encapsulate everyone. And that bubble has to be a bubble of love. And I so often pray that for everyone everywhere, that they are protected, that they are in a bubble of love, and that only love may enter, and that anything that is negative or toxic goes back from where it came, and it goes back with a blessing. It's really, really important to me personally to do that. But it's important for all of us to stay connected, to realize our connection with one another, but to stay connected to God, connected to Spirit, and to know, to have faith that everything in our lives can work for the better if we start seeing things in a better way. You know, Cynthia said, we won't have love and we won't have peace until we are connected to all things, connected through the heart to everyone and everything. And that definitely means spending more time on the mountaintop. We must have faith. We must have faith that all good is possible. We must have faith that we are governed and will always be governed by people who have the highest and best in our hearts. And if we believe this, then we will make it so. We have to really understand what it is all about, and we have to understand that our faith is so important in the process. We need to know that this stuff really works, and it does work. It works when we refuse to go down in the dumps, when we refuse to be in dark places. Instead, when we look for love and laughter and light and joy and gratitude, when we give thanks for all of the goodness in our lives, it is so important to do that. Cynthia wrote that perhaps we need to bleed very deeply. And if we do, the healing will begin. You know, sometimes wounds have to bleed so deeply that healing begins. I'd like to think that the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg might be the depth of that wound that starts the healing process. There's a wonderful expression I love by the French author Anne Nin, and that's about the risk of when the risk of being tightly in the bud becomes more painful than the risk of blossoming. That's what we have to do. We have to take the risk to blossom into love and into joy and into thanksgiving. And we have to put our faith into action. We can't let faith just be a noun. It has to become a verb. There are things that we can do out there. We have to look at what each of us can do. And I'd like to share with you what our center has just decided to do. The board of our center met this past week. And one of our members goes to Cuba every year. And he was recently in touch with me, and he said that things in Cuba are really, really in serious shape. People are starving. They don't have enough food, and children are malnourished. And the thing is that the soil is so parched from the heat, and there's not enough fresh water, that they can't grow things. And they have been dependent mostly upon Venezuela for their food and for goods that they can import. But a certain president of a large country made trade agreements with other countries that forbade Venezuela to provide anything for the Cubans. And so they don't have enough food. And I asked my congregant, who's a friend, I asked him what it would take so that people could somehow, get food from somewhere, food that is presently unavailable to them because of extreme poverty and just because there isn't enough of it. And he said, everybody works. And he said it would take about $1,000 more for a family of 4 for 1 year to bring them out of this incredible poverty that they're in and to provide them with things that they need in their lives. $1,000. That's hardly anything in our lives here in Canada. Hardly anything. But it means a year of being able to live more comfortably with some of the simplest pleasures in a country like Cuba. And so our center is a tithing center. We take money from everything that is donated to us and put it aside into an account. And we use it for various things. And typically it's for local projects and also to support our ministries in other places through our head office. But our board decided when we met this past week that we would send $1,000 to a family of 4 in Cuba. And I emailed Dr. Ken Gordon, who was the spiritual director of Centers for Spiritual Living, and asked him if it would be appropriate to involve other centers in this. And he said, by all means, do that. And we can involve other churches where we live. We can involve people everywhere and getting together to do this. Set up some kind of a fund. Watch this space, as Rachel Maddow would say, watch this space, because we're going to come up with a plan for this. I recognize that with all of the things that are happening in the United States right now, with the fires, with floods, with riots, with racism, with all of the horrible things that are going on, that many of the churches there will want to be supporting, people who have lost their homes and people who are suffering from all of the damage that's been done. But we can all do something to help somewhere. Let us open our hearts and understand that this is possible. We can each do something. And one of the really big things that we can do is sit on the mountaintop and meditate and pray and see the world as a better place and see everyone sheltered and fed and clothed and educated. It is time. It's absolutely time. And if no one else is going to do it, then we can do it. Cynthia said she believes that there are 36 people on this planet that are holding the Earth in its orbit. I don't know where she gets that information, but she's a mystic. 36 people. Who are they? Where are they? What if you're one of them? What if your friends are some of them? Ernest Holmes said, give me 1,000 people who really believe this teaching and who practice it, and we will have peace on earth. The thing is, we need to believe it. And in order to believe it, it means getting into meditation. It means praying. It means putting God first, making God a priority in our lives before we do anything else each day, to talk to God and to listen to God. And we will get messages. And our lives will be better. And the packages of energy that we will be sending out will be positive ones that will begin to heal these deep and terrible wounds that we are experiencing on this planet right now. Are you game to join us? Stay tuned and we'll tell you more in the weeks ahead. Thank you for being with us today. If you'd like to go to our website, www.cslvictoria.org, you can make a contribution to our center, knowing that some of what you contribute is going to go to worthy causes. Some of it's going to go to Cuba. Some of it will go to other things in our communities. And also what you give really keeps our centers going. We are so grateful. I send love and blessings and virtual hugs to absolutely everyone today. Be safe, be well, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.